Kurva. Co se stalo s mým obličejem? Kde to sakra jsem? Hey you stranger. I see you have a monster for me. Give it to me! Thank you, stranger. Welcome to my new show called Is It a Meme? A show where I'm gonna be talking about random subjects and deciding if it's a meme or not. Today's subject is gonna be virtual reality, also known as VR, XR, AR, mixed reality, augmented reality, fuck you. And I will decide if it's a meme or not. So what the fuck is a VR? Well, VR is a stereotypical VR headset is a box you put on your head and you have either one or two controllers, stereotypically. If you wanna have the best experience, you have two controllers. It's either wireless or you have a wired VR headset and it's connected with base stations. Now, what are the pros of it? You know, what are the positive things about virtual reality? Well, I think it's an interesting technology in concept. Plus, you use your whole body, like arms and legs, everything, basically. And some of these games look pretty damn interesting and pretty damn immersive, in my opinion. But again, some of these things are cool in concept. And again, you should keep in mind, it's in concept, because reality is often, misleading. But really, that's about it. I don't have anything else positive about VR that I can say, because really there's just not much positive about VR that I have. So what the fuck is my problem with VR? Why am I being so mean about VR? Well, here's the thing. There's just too many negative things, too many cons about it that make it not worth it for me, because I will tell you what I think about VR, okay? Well, first of all, you have a high amount of requirement for owning a VR or having at least a good experience with it. So first of all, if you wanna have a good, goddamn good, best VR experience, you need to have a good computer. Like a really good computer. You need to have good USB ports. You need to have a really good Wi-Fi. You really need to make sure you have a good computer, because it's gonna run like shit if it's not gonna be a good computer. Now my notebook has NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1650 in Intel CPU 9300 or 9th gen. I have 16 gigabytes of RAM. I have two SSDs. It's an overall decent notebook. I think it could be a lot better, and I'm not sure if I can run most of the other more demanding VR headsets. Now, also, if you're gonna be running with wired VR headsets, you need to also make sure you have enough ports so you could plug all your base stations, which, by the way, you have to set up all over your room. And of course, you're gonna have cables everywhere. So if you don't do a cable management, yeah, you will kill yourself with it, basically. Well, the alternative is, of course, having it wireless, which only will require you to own a VR headset, in theory, and a smartphone. So you could install some goddamn app on your phone and be able to use it, because for whatever reason, we live in 2024, and VR headsets, for whatever reason, require smartphone, but hey ho. Another issue I have with VR headsets is most of the VR headsets are not plug and play. All of them require some sort of hardware for whatever reason. I mean, I get that if you wanna update drivers or firmware. If you just wanna have a simple plug and play VR headset, that's impossible. And wireless VR headsets have some negatives as well. I'm not sure how many negatives. I know, for example, VR chat doesn't load all the models in a normal wireless mode. Apparently, you can have them in a wired mode, at least on PC, but I don't know. That's what my friend told me, so I'll roll with it. Now, wireless VR headsets may have, less compatible. I'm not sure if you would call it compatibility, but less options when it comes to other accessories. So for example, trackers, I think they require base stations in order to be, tracked, basically. Now, I'm not sure if it's possible with those wireless VR headsets. I believe it is, but it's a bit of a rigmarole you have to go through. I think in the future you may be able to use trackers, for example, but I don't know.
Now, when it comes to other accessories like haptic vests or other things, I don't know exactly if you need to have a wired VR headset.
Another huge issue I have with VR is, of course, the high cost. Like, everything is expensive. So, of course, you have to keep in mind that you have to spend shitload of money on a good computer if you wanna have it wired. You then also need to have a VR headset, which is also expensive. Now, I made a quick search on alza.cz and cheap gaming-capable VR headsets you can own, which is MetaQuest 2, which has 128 gigabytes of storage, and it costs 8,499 Czech crowns, which is not bad. I mean, it's still expensive. It's still almost as expensive as my Asus phone, or you know, this phone, for example. And yeah, and thing is, it's also on sale, which is minus 15%, which, I mean, normal cost would be almost 10,000 at this point. Then, of course, the price keeps climbing up. You have 15,000, almost 13,000, 15,000, 20,000, 30,000, or even 35,000 or 40,000. Like, it's insane. It's insane how expensive VR headsets are. And that's not just VR headsets, that's literally everything. Base stations, controllers, treadmills, which, by the way, don't even bother looking at it. Don't even bother looking up the price. It's insanely expensive. It's really expensive. Then, of course, you have those trackers, which also cost some money. The haptic vests, if you want to have Mach immersion. Seriously, don't bother. Don't bother. It's so expensive. Really expensive. And it's even worse if you're not gonna be using it every day. If you're gonna use it at least once a week or once a month or once a year, just don't bother. Just don't bother. Yes, there's two counter arguments.
But LIFEofDOMOVOI, aren't you using a gaming notebook? Aren't you using smartphones?
That's true. I have a gaming notebook and I have smartphones, but here's the thing. I use them every day. Now, on my gaming notebook, which costed around 25,000 Czech crowns, I almost use it every day. I have shit ton of games installed on my computer. I'm browsing on it, I'm editing pictures, I'm editing videos on it, I'm editing config files. I do a lot of stuff on my computer. And smartphone, I use it for, again, browsing, watching YouTube. I use it as a music player, so I could listen to good old rock, punk rock and metal. I use also other stuff like, you know, weather apps, notepads and all kinds of useful things. Yes, I have 3-4 games installed on it, but I don't really play them because they're boring. Let's be real. They're smartphone games. They usually are boring and not very good at that. Another thing is there's not many alternatives. So let's say if you don't like your specific brand, for example, let's make an example, Meta. If you don't want to use Meta quests and you want to use something else like HTC, Lynx, Pimax, Valve Index, of course, there's just not many good alternatives, at least cheap alternatives. There's Windows Mixed Reality, but it's been buried underground for a couple of years, so why bother? I'm not sure if it's even worth getting at this point. I mean, I remember there was supposed to be some kind of alternative for Meta, which was the Lynx R1 VR headset, but it's complete dog shit. I mean, they claimed it's gonna be cheaper. They claim it's open source, which I think it is open source. And I was like, yeah, that's good. That's good. I wanna get it. And you know, then I realized it's more or less more expensive. The tracking is kind of bad, really bad. The controllers are bad. I mean, they were working on new controllers, but you know, I don't know if they are still working on it, if they actually developed something that's good.
Yeah. Another alternative outside of Lynx R1 VR headset is, of course, HTC Vive Cosmos Plus Elite, which, by the way, it's a scam, basically. It's a fucking scam. I mean, I'm not gonna talk about the whole shenanigan with the Elite, because, you know, HTC Vive Cosmos has terrible tracking. Everybody talks about it, it's garbage. But one thing that sucks about it is there's not much of a database. People usually compare it with MetaQuest 2 or MetaQuest 1. Well, not exactly MetaQuest 1. Oculus Quest VR headset. Technically, the Quest 2 is also originally known as Oculus, but whatever. That's besides the point. Now, normally they don't compare it with other VR headsets that are inside-out tracked. They're not. It's not compared with Lynx R1 VR headset or Windows Mixed Reality, it's compared with much better headsets, especially if it's compared to MetaQuest 2, MetaQuest Pro, or MetaQuest 3. I mean, those VR headsets are much better, but seriously, with those other older garbage VR headsets, it's not usually often compared to with, which is kind of a shame, really.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. It's not worth it. And I think it's overhyped, which is my next problem. Some of these VR headsets are just being hyped like crazy, and then you are disappointed. Oh my god! This new VR headset. It has 5,000 by 5,000 pixel display, fucking 9,000 hertz of refresh rate. Oh my god, the tracking is amazing. Oh my god, how much does it cost? That sounds fucking awesome. How much does it cost? Wait for it. It's accessible only for $1,000. Wow, so affordable. Really? Like, they hype it so hard, you think it's gonna be a new affordable VR headset, then you realize it's gonna be another expensive junk, which is just cringe. And speaking of cringe, next problem is not exactly, well, technically with VR headsets, but it's with community and YouTubers, which are just straight up cringe. There's just something weird, especially about YouTubers. They just feel weird. I mean, some of them, again, I'm not talking shit about all YouTubers or people that are fan of VR. Some of these people are alright, normal members of the society that is crumbling apart. But anyway, some of these YouTubers are just these really cringy, weird, forced to be happy, forced to be, oh, yippee-ki-yay. They're just weird, okay? Some of them are just, they share a lot of things. They have these weird rooms where they have neon light. They're usually fan of anime. They listen to lo-fi music or some electronic stuff or hip-hop crap. They paint their nails, they're wearing some trendy clothes. Have I mentioned they watch anime? Some of them are pro-LGBT, mutant, communist, far-left swine.
Yeah, some of them are Black Lives Matter supporters, yada yada yada. And here's one thing that most VR YouTubers or VR community watched, and that is Ready Player One. Because, oh my god, oh, that movie inspired me, oh my god. Now, most of these plebs are using this movie as the tipping point on why they bought VR. I mean, I don't even know much about Ready Player One. I know the plot of this movie is most people use VR headsets and there's many video game characters, but that's all I know about this movie.
But whatever. That's besides the point. They're just weird. Really weird. They feel unnatural. VR community, on the other hand, you know, the normal everyday Joes, they're just weird. You dare to make a criticism, they're immediately like, they immediately are more toxic. They will talk crap about you. They will be passive aggressive. They think they're superior. Let's just say it. Let's just put it that way. They think they're superior because they have a box strapped to their freaking face. They have two controllers. They think they're superior to, you know, PC or consoles, which in reality it's not the case. I mean, of course the PC is superior, but consoles, they deserve a bit of a shout out. They're also pretty good, I think. But yeah, I really am not fan of the community, VR community, and especially those YouTubers. Again, not all of them. Some of them are okay. But let's get back to VR headsets, the actual boxes strapped to your face. Let's talk about the games, because nobody cares about office stuff, watching videos or any other crap. We care about games, because we are gamers, right? We are epic gamers, of course. Most of these games are just not interesting. There's no hype about them. Some of them are even copies of the console games or, you know, desktop games. And most importantly, some of them are glorified tech demos.
Some genres in video games are just hard, if not impossible, to replicate in VR. So for example, if you wanna have 2D games, anything from top-down view or even third-person stuff, I think that's really difficult, if not impossible, to replicate. I mean, most of the VR games are just first person, so yeah, it's really difficult to replicate that stuff. And if it is possible, then I swear to God, it must be a pain in the ass to play. One annoying issue I have with VR games is a lot of them look similar, way too similar graphically. This is another issue I have with VR games. Similar with consoles or desktop PC. There's a lot of modern video games that look similar. They have this generic, polished look, quote unquote. It looks ultra HD. Oh my god, oh god. Like seriously, most of the modern video games look similar. They have no soul. They're just soulless, just dull, boring. They just don't look... I mean, sure, they look a little bit good. A little bit. But it just looks generic. I don't really like modern video games. They don't have that unique art style most older games or indie games have. You know, pixelated stuff, you know, old school 90s, early 2000s. That kind of thing. That's something that's missing from a lot of video games. I mean, some of those games have unique art style. For example, Cruelty Squad is something that I came up with in my head. I mean, Cruelty Squad looks amazing, dude. A lot of the stuff, I mean, not just Cruelty Squad, there's a whole bunch of games that look good. VR, on the other hand, just suffers from it. They look generic as hell, and it's a shame.
Like seriously, there's just no hype for games. The only game that I know about that was hyped was Half-Life Alyx. That's the only game that I was hyped about, because it's Half-Life game, of course. I mean, yeah, of course, Valve. But most importantly, because it was a Half-Life game. But you know, let me tell you a bit of a secret. Come here, motherfucker. You can actually play the game on PC with keyboard and mouse. And it's damn good experience. And I mean seriously, if you wanna play Half-Life Alyx and you don't wanna spend your money on VR headset, just download Half-Life Alyx no VR mod. It's actually pretty good. I mean, there's a couple of bugs, glitches, soft locks, but I still think it's a damn good game and a damn good mod at that. It's basically, if you wanna have a simple oversimplification, it's basically Half-Life 2 but slower, and it encourages more exploration. Sure, there's a couple of questionable things about Half-Life Alyx, some retcon, some weird changes, but I still think it's a good game. But anyway, yeah, only Half-Life Alyx made me hyped, but that's it. Speaking of support, there's two things that I have pretty big paranoia. Well, one of it is paranoia, the other one is kind of whatever. So let's talk about support on operating systems. Now, I have mentioned about Windows, macOS, /iOS, Android, but what about other operating systems like Gnu+Linux, BSD, Haiku OS, or Chrome OS even though it's a meme OS. Well, here's the thing. Chrome OS, BSD, and Haiku OS, I don't think they have any support, but Gnu+Linux has some support apparently. The best support, I think, out of all headsets is gonna be Valve Index, because of course it's gonna have best support. Then there's some support for HTC Vive. Maybe you can get PSVR running alongside with Oculus headsets. And there's of course the aforementioned Lynx R1 VR headset, which I think it may have support on Linux, because I saw in one of those videos I saw a computer and there was a Ubuntu desktop environment on it. You know, the desktop of the Ubuntu, which is a Gnu+Linux distribution. So maybe it has support on Linux. Other than that, good luck if you wanna play it outside of Windows or maybe even Mac. And here's another issue that I'm really paranoid, and that is what happens if they stopped supporting it. What's gonna happen if they stop supporting it? Oh, not even a god knows what's gonna happen. So there's two types of support, okay? Video game support and manufacturer support. Well, in video games, for example, multiplayer especially, what the hell is gonna happen if they stop supporting it? Am I not gonna be able to play that freaking game? Like, that's stupid. I mean, imagine buying a video game, for example. Imagine spending so much money on VR headsets and other accessories, plus the video game. Then you wanna play it, you enjoy it, for example, and then all of a sudden, what's gonna happen? Oh, we stopped supporting your game of choice. I guess you're not gonna be able to play our games, but that's okay. You can buy a new VR headset. Like, that's scummy as fuck. Like, I'm sorry, but that's very scummy. Like, imagine you have your favorite PC game, for example, a console game, and you're not gonna be able to play it because the developer said so. Like, it's really scummy, and I don't like it, to be honest. And I'm not sure if you can do anything with it. Now, when it comes to the manufacturer supporting it, that's another big issue. Like, what's gonna happen if they stop supporting it? Is it gonna be a useless brick that's not gonna do anything, that's not gonna be functional or whatever. Like, piss off. I mean, there's a couple of things with smartphones. I mean, for example, my previous phone, the one I'm using to record myself, Asus, stopped being supported somewhere in 2018, I think, if not even somewhere in 2020, because they officially released the Android 9 and they were working on Android 10, which they gave up on it. And again, if you wanna know something about smartphones, check my video. That's the thing, they stopped supporting my phone, but it still works, mostly. I mean, it works. I mean, they just stopped supporting my phone with the operating system, but it still works. Technically, if I was skilled, I could install Lineage OS, which is a newer Android, which I think it may have Android 14, but it still works. So now when it comes to PC, that's an interesting thing. Usually when it starts breaking down, you can just replace some of these parts. If operating system stops working and you're not afraid to use something else, then you have a couple of options. You can just buy another new computer with Windows on it. B, you could just throw it away and you could buy a Mac. Or there's another option, which is of course, the smartest option, which could be installing Linux on it. Sure, Linux is not perfect, but I would rather install Linux on it, because if I don't wanna use Windows or Mac OS, because the other operating systems are meme. And yeah, that's about it. And it's even worse considering it's a VR headset, which is also expensive as hell. So which is also another reason why I don't wanna own it. But now we arrived at the end of the video. We have one of the most important questions. Is it a meme? Yes, it is a meme. I mean, VR is a fucking joke, dude. Seriously, why? Why would I spend so much money on a VR headset or any other accessories so I could play just what? 1 or 2 games? I mean, I get it. I mean, there's of course the counter argument. You could get it on eBay for cheaper price, and that is true. You could get it on eBay for cheaper price, for example. In my case, in Czech Republic, we have something called bazos.cz. Well, technically bazos.cz, but whatever. It's Bazos, and you could get it for cheaper price. That's true. That's actually true. Especially the Windows mixed reality headsets, the old school Oculus VR headsets, the original HTC Vive. But really, when we talk about new VR headsets, like they release it, and I wanna go to czc.cz, also, all those other websites, then of course it's gonna be very expensive. And I really don't think there's any point in owning it if it's for what? For 1 or 2, 5 games, for example. And really, I just don't have the reason to own it. I don't think it's worth it, and I really don't think I'm not gonna own it ever. Like, what is the point? I don't understand. I really don't see the point in owning it. So yeah, that's it. That's the end of the video. I don't know what else I'm gonna upload, but let me tell you something. When I upload something, you're gonna come and you will watch it, and you will come, and you will watch it, and you will come.